On Christmas morning, my daughter-in-law called the police on me because of a cherry pie. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets much more intense, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But let me back up and tell you how Christmas morning turned into the day that changed everything. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 61 years old, a retired school librarian, and, until recently, I thought of myself as the kind of woman who would do anything for her family. I'm not rich, but I've always shared what I had. A little money here, a hot meal there, the kind of grandmother who shows up with cookies and handmade scarves. Maybe too much, maybe too often. But I thought love meant giving. But what I didn't know was that the very people I gave everything to would one day turn me into a suspect in my own family. It was Christmas morning in Chicago, the kind where the air feels sharp enough to cut your skin, but the snow makes everything look like it belongs on a postcard. I had woken up early, as always, to pack the gifts for my grandkids, Lucas and Mia, and to carefully place my cherry pie, still warm, inside its carrier. I hummed along to Bing Crosby on the radio, the same record I used to play when Daniel was little. Back then, he'd be sitting by the oven, his cheeks flushed, waiting for the pie to cool. Those memories still warmed me. I drove through the suburbs, the streets lined with glowing Christmas lights, inflatable Santas wobbling in the wind, kids dragging sleds across front yards. My heart was light. This was my favorite day of the year. I kept thinking, this is the one place where I still feel like I belong. When I pulled up to Daniel's house, I could already hear the faint sound of carols playing inside. The windows glowed with that golden holiday light that makes you think everything inside must be perfect. I carried the gifts in one arm, the pie balanced carefully in the other, and knocked on the door with my elbow. Sophia answered. She looked stunning, as always, hair perfectly done, a cream sweater that looked like it came straight out of a holiday catalog. Her smile was wide, maybe a little too wide, but I brushed it off. "Merry Christmas, Eleanor," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a polite tap on the back. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and pine, candles flickering on every table. Lucas ran straight toward me, arms out, shouting, "Grandma! Did you bring the pie?" That boy! His eyes lit up like fireworks. I laughed and held the carrier up. "Of course I did, sweetheart." "Christmas isn't Christmas without it, Mia," quieter but just as sweet, tugged at my sleeve. "I hope Santa brought me the art set I asked for." I winked and whispered, "Well, you'll just have to open your presents and see." The living room was a picture-perfect holiday spread, garland on the staircase, stockings by the fireplace, gifts stacked so high they looked like they might topple over. We gathered around the tree, and for a while, everything really did feel magical. The kids tore into wrapping paper. Daniel laughed at their excitement. And I sat back on the couch, pie carrier still in my lap, feeling grateful. But then little cracks started to show. Tiny, almost invisible at first. When Daniel thanked me for the new winter coat I'd bought him, Sophia's smile tightened. When the kids squealed over their gifts, she cleared her throat, saying, "Remember, Santa did most of the work, not Grandma." I chuckled to myself, not wanting to make a scene. Later, I offered to help in the kitchen. That's when I noticed something odd. My pie, the one I'd placed carefully on the counter, was gone. In its place, I saw boxes of store-bought cheesecakes and frosted cookies arranged neatly on a platter. My heart skipped. Maybe she just moved it. Maybe it was chilling in the fridge. I opened the fridge door. Nothing. Checked the pantry. Nothing! My pie had vanished. I turned to Sophia, trying to keep my voice calm. "Hey, did you move the cherry pie? The kids are excited for it." Her shoulders stiffened. She didn't look at me when she said, "Oh, I put it away. We already have plenty of desserts. I thought it would be better to simplify." Simplify. My jaw tightened, but I forced a smile. "It's tradition, Sophia. The kids love it." She finally met my eyes, her tone sharper this time. "Eleanor, not everything has to be your tradition. You always insert yourself, your gifts, your pie, your money. It's smothering, that word. Smothering. It landed like a slap. I tried to laugh it off. "I was just trying to help, honey. You know I've always brought the pie." Her voice cut in louder now. "You don't help. You control. You buy things we don't ask for. You make us feel indebted, and then you expect us to praise you for it. Do you know how exhausting that is?" For a second, I couldn't breathe. Control? Is that what she thought of me? All those coats, tuition checks, last-minute grocery runs. I thought I was being supportive. I thought I was making their lives easier. Daniel walked in just then, holding a tray of glasses. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, his eyes darting between us. Sophia smiled sweetly, her voice suddenly light again. "Of course." Just deciding which dessert to serve, I stayed silent. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the counter. The warmth I'd carried into that house, the joy of Christmas morning, it was slipping through my fingers. Still, I tried to push the moment aside. I didn't want to ruin the holiday. We all sat down for dinner, the table beautiful with roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce. But when Lucas piped up, "Grandma, where's your cherry pie?" the room froze. Sophia's fork clinked against her plate. "It's not on the menu this year," she said firmly. Lucas frowned. "But it's always here." I wanted some Daniel cleared his throat, muttering something about trying new traditions. Mia looked down at her plate. And me? I just swallowed hard and smiled weakly, pretending it didn't hurt. But it did. It hurt more than I can explain. Because in that moment, I realized it wasn't just about a pie. It was about being erased, about being tolerated, not wanted. And I knew this was only the beginning. You know how sometimes one sentence can shatter the mood of an entire room? That's exactly what happened in that kitchen. "You don't help. You control," those words kept ringing in my ears, sharper than the clinking of glasses or the Christmas carols drifting in from the living room. I stood there, staring at Sophia, trying to convince myself I had misheard. But no, her eyes were steady, her jaw set. She meant every word. I wanted to defend myself. God, I wanted to scream, "Are you kidding me? Do you know how many nights I stayed up clipping coupons to buy Daniel those science kits when he was a boy? Do you know how many times I skipped paying my own bills just so I could help cover his college tuition? Control, number. It was love. It was sacrifice. But instead of yelling, I whispered, "Sophia, that's not fair." Her laugh was short, humorless. "Fair? Eleanor, you've been running this family with your checkbook for years. Every gift has strings attached. Every favor makes us feel like we owe you something. And honestly, I'm done pretending it doesn't bother me." I felt the air leave my chest. I looked toward the doorway, hoping Daniel might reappear, hoping he'd say something, anything, to defend me. But all I heard was the sound of my grandchildren giggling over toys in the living room. Their innocence stung. They had no idea a storm was brewing just a few feet away. I tried again, my voice breaking. Sophia, all I've ever wanted was to help. I thought you appreciated. Her words sliced through me like glass. Appreciated? We tolerate it because of the money. That's the truth. Without your checks, without your pie, without your endless reminders that we wouldn't make it without you, we'd finally breathe. I froze. Tolerate. That word dug deep, colder than the winter air outside. Was that all I was to them? A wallet? A nuisance they put up with for the sake of comfort? I must have looked pale, because Sophia softened her tone. Just a fraction. I know you think you're helping, but you don't realize how suffocating it is. Daniel and I want our own traditions, our own life, and we can't have that if you're always hovering, always controlling. For a moment, I couldn't trust myself to speak. My throat burned, my hands itched to grab that missing pie, to hold on to some piece of myself that hadn't been erased. Instead, I steadied my breath and said quietly, "So, what do you want me to do, Sophia? Stop showing up? Stop being a grandmother to Lucas and Mia?" She looked me dead in the eye. "I want you to stop buying your way into this family." The room spun. I thought of Lucas's little voice just hours earlier. "Grandma, did you bring the pie?" I thought of Mia's shy smile when she tugged at my sleeve. Were those moments fake? Or would they vanish too, if Sophia had her way? Before I could respond, Daniel walked in again, humming a carol, completely oblivious. He kissed Sophia on the cheek, set down the tray, and asked, "Everything okay here?" Sophia's mask slid back on instantly. Her voice was light, sweet as sugar. "Of course, honey. Just deciding where to put all these desserts." Daniel smiled, kissed the top of my head, and walked out again, leaving me standing in the wreckage of her words. The rest of dinner was a blur. I smiled when I was supposed to. I passed dishes around. I even laughed at one of Daniel's corny jokes about burnt stuffing. But inside, I was crumbling. Every time Sophia's hand brushed his arm, every time she leaned in close to whisper something, I felt like an intruder in a house I used to know. And then came the final straw. As the plates were cleared, I caught Sophia's voice behind me, low but pointed. "She'll never change, Daniel. We have to set boundaries, boundaries." Another dagger. I turned, ready to confront her, but Daniel just nodded weakly, his eyes darting away from mine. That silence, that cowardly silence, hurt worse than her words, because it meant he agreed. Maybe not fully, maybe not with her cruelty, but enough to let it slide, enough to leave me standing there, humiliated in my own son's home. When I finally excused myself to leave, Sophia didn't even try to stop me. She just smiled, that polite, distant smile, and said, "Drive safe, Eleanor." I carried my empty pie carrier to the car, my hands trembling. The snow was falling harder now, flakes stinging my cheeks as if the sky itself was mocking me. And that's when it happened. As I reached for my keys, Sophia's voice called out from the doorway, "You can't threaten us and just walk away." "Threaten?" My head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" I shouted back, my voice shaking. Her phone was already in her hand. "I'm calling the police." For a moment, I thought she was bluffing, some twisted way to scare me, to prove her power. But minutes later, flashing lights filled the driveway. 2 officers stepped out of their car, their boots crunching against the snow. And there I was, on Christmas night, explaining myself to the police because my daughter-in-law decided my pie and my presents were threats. I held back tears as I showed them receipts of gifts, bank transfers, the endless trail of proof that all I had ever done was give. One officer glanced at the other, both of them clearly uncomfortable. They told me to keep the peace and left. But the damage was done, because in that moment, with red and blue lights reflecting off the snow, I realized something I had been too blind to see. I wasn't part of this family anymore. Not in the way I thought, not in the way I deserved. And that realization, it lit a fire in me I didn't know I had. You ever sit at a table where every smile feels forced? That's how dinner felt that night. The turkey was juicy, the gravy was smooth, the cranberry sauce sparkled like rubies in the candlelight, but everything tasted like ash in my mouth. Lucas sat beside me, chattering about his new Lego set. Sweet boy. His excitement was the only thing keeping me from breaking down right there at the table. Mia, quieter as always, kept glancing between me and her mother, as if she sensed something wasn't right. Children notice more than we give them credit for. I tried to stay present. I tried to laugh when Daniel told one of his awful dad jokes about Christmas elves, but the laughter stuck in my throat. Every time I lifted my fork, my eyes drifted to the dessert table across the room, brightly frosted store-bought cookies, a cheesecake still in its plastic container. My pie wasn't there. My tradition wasn't there. And then, like salt in a wound, Lucas asked the question I'd been dreading. Grandma, when do we get the cherry pie? Silence. Pure, heavy silence. Sophia didn't even look at him. She just said, sharp as a knife, not this year. Lucas frowned. Confusion etched across his little face. But it's Christmas. We always. Lucas. Daniel cut him off. His voice was firm, but uneasy. We're trying something new this year. Grandma understands. Do I thought. Do I really? Because right then, I didn't understand anything except the ache in my chest. I put on a smile for Lucas, patting his hand. It's okay, sweetheart. Maybe next time, my voice cracked on that last word. Next time. Even then, I wasn't sure there would be a next time. The rest of the meal passed in a blur. Plates clinked, forks scraped, conversation ebbed and flowed. But underneath it all was a current of tension so thick I could almost choke on it. And I realized I wasn't the only one who felt it. Mia barely touched her food. Daniel avoided my eyes. Even the dog seemed restless, pacing near the table. After dinner, when the kids ran upstairs to play, I slipped into the hallway to grab my coat. I couldn't stay, not another second. That's when Sophia followed me. Eleanor? Her voice was low, almost gentle, but her eyes, they were cold, sharp, like glass. I turned to face her. My hands clutched the collar of my coat. Yes? She crossed her arms, leaning against the wall like she had all the time in the world. I'm going to be honest with you. We only keep you around for one reason. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to hear it, but something in her tone told me I needed to. She didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Money, that's it. The gifts, the checks, the tuition payments, the mortgage help. Daniel would never admit it, but that's the only reason we put up with you. Without it, you're unnecessary. I swear, I felt the floor shift beneath me. Unnecessary, I whispered. I'm his mother. Their grandmother. I raised him. You raised him, yes. And now he's mine. This is our family, not yours. You need to learn where you stand. Her words sliced through me like a blade. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat was tight, my hands trembling. She leaned closer, her perfume cloying, suffocating. So here's the truth. If you want to keep being part of this family, you write the checks, you smile, and you stay out of the way. Otherwise, don't bother showing up. Something in me snapped. For the first time all night, the fog of hurt cleared, replaced by something sharp, something alive. I straightened my shoulders. My voice was quiet but steady. No, Sophia. I won't be used anymore, not by you, not by anyone. Her smirk faltered, just for a second. Oh, really? She said, almost amused. We'll see how long that lasts. I grabbed my coat, walked past her, and opened the front door. The cold air rushed in, biting at my cheeks. For once, I welcomed it. It felt cleaner than the poison inside that house. And as I stepped out, I realized something. This wasn't just about a pie, or money, or even Christmas. This was about respect. And for the first time in years, I decided I wasn't going to beg for it anymore. You'd think Christmas night should end with hot cocoa, maybe a movie by the fire. But me? I ended mine standing in the freezing driveway, headlights glaring, red and blue lights flashing across the snow like some twisted holiday decoration. Sophia's voice carried out from the doorway, dripping with false fear. She threatened us. She said she'd take everything away. My heart pounded in my chest. Threatened? I had done nothing but defend myself, nothing but finally, for once, say no. 2 officers stepped out of the car, their boots crunching on the ice. One of them, tall with a tired look in his eyes, nodded politely. Ma'am, can we talk to you for a moment? I forced a smile, though my hands were shaking. Of course, officer. But I think there's been a misunderstanding. Behind them, I could see Sophia standing in the warm glow of the doorway, her arms folded, lips pursed in mock worry. Daniel hovered beside her, looking torn but not enough to stop her. That hurt more than the cold wind whipping at my face. The officer cleared his throat. We got a call about a possible domestic threat. Something about financial control, potential intimidation. I laughed, too quickly, too harshly. It came out cracked, like glass breaking. Intimidation? Officer, the only thing I brought to that house tonight was gifts for my grandchildren and a cherry pie. That's it. They exchanged a glance. Do you have any proof of what you're saying? Gifts? Financial support? Anything like that? For a moment, I almost broke. Because who keeps proof of love? Who documents every time they step in to help? But then I remembered. I had. Not out of pride, but out of habit. Receipts, bank transfers, notes. Years of helping and quietly keeping track. I opened my purse with trembling fingers and pulled out an envelope I'd brought for Daniel. A Christmas card stuffed with a check to help cover the kids' tuition next semester. My voice wavered as I handed it over. This was supposed to be their gift. Not a threat, not a weapon, just a gift. The shorter officer took the envelope, glanced at it, then looked back at me with softened eyes. Ma'am, this doesn't look like intimidation. Looks like generosity. I nodded, blinking back tears. Exactly. But generosity doesn't mean much when it's twisted into something ugly. He sighed, handing the card back. We'll file this as a misunderstanding. Just try to keep the peace, all right? Keep the peace, as if peace was something I had the power to hold together by myself. They wished me a good night and left, their car rolling away into the snowy dark. The house behind me was silent now, Sophia's figure gone from the doorway. Only the wreath hung there, lights twinkling, mocking me with their cheer. I stood in the snow, breath clouding the air, my cheeks burning from more than the cold. That's when it hit me. Hard, like a blow to the gut. This wasn't about a pie. This wasn't even about control. This was about power. Sophia had been twisting every good thing I'd done into poison, and Daniel had let her. And for years, I'd been too blind, too eager to be loved, too desperate to belong, to see it. I wasn't a mother to them. I was a wallet, a safety net, a convenience. And that realization, as painful as it was, brought with it a strange, quiet clarity. I tightened my coat around me, the snow falling harder now, covering my footsteps as if erasing the woman I had been. The naive one, the desperate one. No more. As I slid into my car, I whispered to myself, if they think they can erase me, they're wrong. They don't know who they're dealing with. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Resolve. Because this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of something else. Something stronger. Something they'd never expect. You ever have that moment where your whole life feels like a movie, and suddenly you realize you've been cast in the wrong role? That was me. I'd spent years playing the doting mother-in-law, the quiet provider, the woman who'd do anything to keep her family happy. But after that Christmas night, after the flashing lights and the humiliation, something in me broke. Or maybe it didn't break. Maybe it woke up. For the first time, I started asking myself the questions I'd been too afraid to ask. Why did Sophia always dodge conversations about her past? Why did she never mention her family, her childhood, her friends from before? Why did Daniel, my sweet, oblivious son, never seem to know much about her history? So I did what any mother would do when her gut tells her something isn't right. I started digging. At first it was small, Googling her maiden name, or at least the one she claimed was hers. Nothing. Searching her college records. Nothing. That itch in the back of my mind grew sharper. Nobody leaves no trace unless they want to be hidden. I drove myself down to the library, the kind of place people forget exists in the age of smartphones, and I started combing through public records. Hours slipped by as snow fell outside, my hands flipping page after page of old newspapers, legal documents, archived reports. And then I found her. Not Sophia Miller, not the charming woman who hosted Christmas dinners with perfect decor and a tight smile. Number. I found a woman named Sophie Marquez, arrested 15 years ago in Arizona for embezzlement. Another article, under a different last name, Sophie Dalton, involved in a fraud case in Nevada. My hands went cold, the newspaper slipping slightly from my grip. Same photo, same eyes, same smirk. It was her, my daughter-in-law. I whispered to myself, "My God, what have you done, Daniel?" I kept digging, piecing together fragments like a jigsaw puzzle. Different states, different names, always the same pattern. Money drained, families hurt. And then she'd vanish, like smoke, only to reappear somewhere else with a new identity. By the time I drove home that night, my stomach was in knots. I pulled into the driveway and just sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The woman my son married, the mother of my grandchildren, wasn't just cruel, she was dangerous. That night, I pulled out old bank statements from my desk drawer. I'd kept them all, every wire transfer, every check I'd written for emergencies, every short-term loan she promised they'd pay back. The total stared back at me like a slap. $67,342. $67,000 gone, vanished into her handbags, her spa weekends, her designer sweaters she wore so casually around the house. I thought back to all the times I'd brushed it off. She just has expensive taste. She wants to impress the neighbors. It's not my place to judge. Number. It wasn't taste. It wasn't pride. It was theft. And I had let it happen under my own roof. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in. I drove to Daniel's office. He works in IT, always glued to his screens, living in a world of code. I stood in the doorway, my hands clutching the stack of papers like they were evidence in a trial. "Daniel," I said softly. He looked up surprised. "Mom? What's going on?" I laid the papers down on his desk. He frowned, flipping through them, his brow furrowing deeper with each page. "This is your bank records?" he asked. "No," I said, my voice trembling. "These are hers." I traced it, Daniel. Transfers, accounts, aliases. Sophia isn't who you think she is. For a moment, I thought he'd break down right there. His face went pale, his mouth opening and closing like he was gasping for air. But then, like always, he pulled back into denial. "No," he muttered. "No, Mom, you're seeing things that aren't there." She explained. She didn't explain, I snapped, louder than I meant to. She lied. To you, to all of us. Look at the names, Daniel. Look at the arrests. It's her. She's been draining you dry, waiting for the moment to leave. His eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, I saw my little boy again, not the grown man in front of me, but the child who used to run to me when he scraped his knee, the one who believed I could fix anything. "Mom," his voice cracked. "If this is true, if she really—" "She has," I whispered, my hand on his shoulder. "And if you don't stop her, she'll take everything. You, the kids, your future." Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Daniel's head dropped into his hands, his shoulders shaking. I wanted to hold him, to tell him everything would be okay, but I couldn't lie anymore, because I knew the truth, and the truth was uglier than anything I'd ever imagined. That night, as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, I realized there was only one thing left to do. I had to protect my family, even if that meant exposing the woman Daniel thought he loved. And I had to do it fast, because Sophia wasn't the type to sit still once she knew someone was onto her. You know that saying, "Don't mess with a mother protecting her children"? Well, they forgot to mention grandmothers, because once I uncovered Sophia's past, something fierce lit up inside me. I wasn't just going to sit back and watch her destroy my son's life. Number. This time, I was going to fight back. The detectives didn't laugh when I brought them the evidence. That was my first sign I wasn't crazy. They sat me down in a small, gray room at the station, papers spread across the table. One of them, Detective Ramirez, tapped his pen against a copy of Sophia's arrest record. "She's been on our radar. We just never had enough to nail her." Another detective, a younger woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward. "But with your cooperation, we might finally have what we need." "She's clever. She covers her tracks. But if she thinks you're about to hand her a large sum of money, she'll slip." A sting operation on my own daughter-in-law. The idea made me sick. But then I pictured Lucas asking for the cherry pie, Mia's quiet eyes watching everything, Daniel's shoulders sagging with shame. Number. I wasn't sick. I was ready. We planned it carefully. I would tell Sophia I'd decided to include her in my will, that I was preparing an inheritance gift, one she could access early. It had to be big enough to tempt her, big enough she couldn't resist showing her hand. The night before, I barely slept. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I kept asking myself, what if she figures it out? What if she turns it back on me? But every time doubt crept in, I remembered the look on Daniel's face when he realized the truth. That was enough. The next afternoon, I invited Sophia to meet me at a coffee shop. She arrived looking flawless, as usual, pearls on her ears, a designer bag slung over her shoulder. Her smile was sugar-sweet. "Eleanor," she said, as if nothing had ever happened. I forced a smile. "Sophia, I've been thinking about family, about the future, and I realized maybe I haven't always been fair. You're Daniel's wife, the mother of my grandchildren. You deserve security, too." Her eyes lit up just for a second before she masked it with a modest shrug. "Oh, Eleanor, that's not necessary." "I want to," I interrupted. "I'm setting up a special account." "An inheritance gift. Something just for you." I slid a folder across the table. Inside were fake documents prepared by the detectives, showing account numbers, transfer slips, everything she'd need to access what she thought was $200,000. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages. She tried to keep her voice steady. "That's very generous of you." But I saw it. The hunger in her eyes, the greed she couldn't hide. She leaned in closer. "How soon can I access it?" That was the moment the detectives had been waiting for. Hidden microphones picked up every word, her eagerness, her intent. It was enough. When she left the cafe, 2 plainclothes officers followed. I sat there, hands wrapped around my untouched coffee, my whole body shaking. Minutes later, I saw it through the window. Her being led into a police car, her face twisted in rage, shouting my name like a curse. And just like that, it was over. The call came that evening. Detective Ramirez's voice was steady, almost relieved. "We've confirmed it. Multiple accounts under different names. She's tied to fraud cases in at least 3 states. She won't be seeing daylight anytime soon." I hung up the phone and sat in silence. Relief washed over me, but so did grief. Because no matter how evil Sophia had been, she was still the woman my son had loved, the mother of my grandchildren, and now their lives would never be the same. That night, Daniel came over. His face was pale, his eyes swollen from crying. He collapsed into my arms like he was a boy again. "I should have listened to you," he whispered. "I should have seen it." I held him tight. "You loved her. You wanted to believe the best. That's not a crime, Daniel. That's being human. Lucas and Mia clung to me too, their little arms wrapped around my waist." "Grandma," Lucas said softly, "is Mommy coming back?" My throat tightened. I kissed his forehead. "Not for a while, sweetheart. But you're safe. That's what matters." In the weeks that followed, the house grew quieter. The decorations came down. The lights turned off. Daniel struggled, of course. There were tears, questions, long nights of doubt. But slowly, he began to heal. And I realized something important. For years, I thought my worth came from what I gave: money, gifts, pies on Christmas. But it wasn't the checks that saved my family. It wasn't the cherry pie. It was me, my strength, my refusal to stay silent. I had always been enough. I just hadn't believed it. And as I sat by the window one snowy evening, Lucas and Mia asleep upstairs, Daniel dozing on the couch, I whispered to myself, this is what family looks like. Not perfect, not easy, but real and worth protecting. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. If this story touched you, don't forget to hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you won't miss the next story. And please, tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? I'd love to hear your thoughts.